Hello there, Commodore Wolf from here, and welcome to our first Zelda video in 2025. A year that is a bit of a strange one, since it doesn't have any big anniversaries outside of Majora's Mask and Triforce Heroes. But after the revival of the Zelda timeline in the late end of 2024, there's now far more interest into the games that came before Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. At the same time, Breath of the Wild could see new life on the successor system of the Nintendo Switch, that being the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's go over all the possibilities in this big year before the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda in 2026. But first, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. We're gonna address the big elephant in the room. Yes, Breath of the Wild in 4K. Nintendo is very much looking to copy 2017, started with Breath of the Wild on launch day, then followed up with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which went on to become the best-selling on the system by far, and ended up with the return to form and also very well-selling Super Mario Odyssey in late October that year. This time it might be a little bit different. We might not be starting with Zelda, much is pointing to that it's going to be Mario Kart, and then later on in the year be followed by a new 3D Mario. The reason being quite simple, it's the 40th anniversary of Super Mario, and Nintendo always remembers the anniversary of their mascot franchise. So what about Breath of the Wild 4K then? Well, it might not be a launch title, but it could be coming sometime in between. Most likely in the summer, all to demonstrate the true power of the system when it comes to Nintendo open worlds. Because if they can really make this game run in upscaled 4K, 60 FPS as was reported from Gamescom 2023, then we're talking about a game that could very easily bring also bigger games, brand new games, and then I mean open world games, to the system on day one. And Breath of the Wild is a game that makes sense to have in the launch year of, and especially on the brand new system. The reason being quite simple, is that Breath of the Wild is the fourth best-selling Nintendo Switch game. That speaks everything of why Breath of the Wild will likely become the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe of the Nintendo Switch 2. They need such a big seller and a household name, and probably the game that defines the current system, the Nintendo Switch, the best of them all. But there's also another thing that could make this launch work quite a lot, because just like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Breath of the Wild had paid DLC. DLC that has not been included in an Ultimate Edition, Game of the Year Edition, or anything to date. So there's that one. And we also know that when Nintendo do these kind of deluxe editions, whether that being Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, even Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze with Funky Mode, and also when it comes to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with improved battle mode, new characters and so on, we could see new content in Breath of the Wild in this package, and that might be the selling point. Because we are afraid of one thing, and that is that even though we own Breath of the Wild, we're not going to get a deal like, say, in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, a game that is likely also coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, from Nintendo, a deal where, oh, you get a free upgrade to 4K because you already own it on the previous system. No, this is likely going to be a full release, just like was in the case between Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So we'll have to double dip in this case and probably pay $60 or maybe even $70 for Breath of the Wild again. I know this is very controversial, but with new content, with all pay DLC included, this could be how Nintendo manages to sell this. Since the codename has leaked, U-King-O, which of course corresponds with the original codename of Breath of the Wild, back when it was still called Zelda Wii U, before it got its official name Breath of the Wild, was U-King. This is probably the game we're getting, at least on the Nintendo Switch 2. But it might not be the only Zelda thing we get in 2025, since we have to remember the Nintendo Switch has an install base that is closing very closely towards 150 million units. And which Zelda game, graphically speaking, could work very well on the Nintendo Switch still? I've been thinking of one, and this game has been coming up again and again throughout 2024, and that is obviously the Wind Waker, in this case the HD version that came out on the Wii U over 10 years ago, so in 2013. But here's the thing, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, meaning that if you launch this game, the Wind Waker HD, on the Nintendo Switch, it will also be playable on the Nintendo Switch 2. Just like what will be the case with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Skyward Sword, Link's Awakening, Echoes of Wisdom, it is backwards compatible. Will it sell? That is the big question, because we have seen a slowdown in game sales on the Nintendo Switch. And yes, backwards compatibility is a good argument, but at the same time, the box will still be saying Nintendo Switch. The Wind Waker doesn't really need to be in 4K. But what if Nintendo did a dual release, just like we have seen rumors of in the case of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? Wind Waker HD coming out on the Nintendo Switch, and then we have Wind Waker 4K without massive upgrades on the Nintendo Switch 2, all within the same year. Yeah, that is an actual possibility, because I think this is more from a psychological perspective. People are more likely to buy Wind Waker 4K on Nintendo Switch 2, even though it's just upscaled Wind Waker, instead of the version that is being sold on Switch. It's a strategy that was used already a couple of times with Zelda. We saw that with Twilight Princess launch. People were buying the Wii version rather than the GameCube version. And with Breath of the Wild, where people were definitely buying the Switch version over the Wii U version. I think this is something that could be repeated, because of course you can't do this with Breath of the Wild, but you could do it with the Wind Waker. Take advantage of the big install base of the Switch, while also offering a version for those who have made the transition to the Switch 2 and want Wind Waker in 4K. That could be a strategy that I think Nintendo might even be working on, especially in a year where anniversaries are tricky. The only anniversaries we have, really, of Zelda games, which are usually the pinpoint when it comes to when we see remakes or remasters of Zelda games, is 10 years. And which game is celebrating 10 years in 2025? It's Triforce Heroes, which is a follow-up game to 2013's A Link Between Worlds. The other game that is celebrating its a big anniversary this year is Majora's Mask, 25 years since it came out in the year 2000. But you can't have Majora's Mask 4K before Ocarina of Time 4K. And the same goes with Triforce Heroes. I don't think anyone really wants that before A Link Between Worlds in 4K. The thing is, the anniversaries don't line up. I don't think 2025 is the year where we get Ocarina of Time 4K. If anything, it's probably better fit for the 40th anniversary of the Legend of Zelda franchise next year in 2026. But there also we have Twilight Princess, which, as you probably have noticed, I've separated away from the Wind Waker. And for a very good reason, because back in 2011, when the Wii U was first revealed, we got a view of an overhauled Twilight Princess. Updated art style, textures, visuals, that even Twilight Princess HD has not been able to rival, especially when we upscale that footage that we had in 2011. So now you can imagine what Twilight Princess could look like in 2026. This is why I don't think Twilight Princess, even if Wind Waker was to come out dual on the Switch and Switch 2 in 2025, would not be coming out along with it, because it's better saved for its 20th anniversary next year. While Ocarina of Time 4K remake is more of a project that I think is better saved for later on in the decade. Like a Final Fantasy VII remake trilogy project, which we have brought up previously also. Since the Hero of Time's trilogy is not a trilogy, it's 2 games where you play as the Hero of Time. You have Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and one follows very closely the other. In other words, you can't have Majora's Mask before having Ocarina of Time first. But there's also a missing Hero of Time game between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, which would make sense if you have Twilight Princess first and then followed up with this trilogy starting in, say, I don't know, 2028, since 2027 might be a new top-down Zelda from Grezzo, this time playing as a new Link instead of Zelda. If you have Ocarina of Time in 2028 and in 2030, if you have a new Zelda game in 2029, you have for the 30th anniversary Majora's Mask in 4K, and then followed by a new Hero of Time game sometime in the 2030s. Anyway, that has nothing to do with 2025. I only wanted to bring up the possibilities. This upcoming system will be impacting a lot what we see in terms of Zelda this year. Because of the fact that we had Tears of the Kingdom in 2023 and then Echoes of Wisdom in 2024, we are far away from a brand new Zelda game. It's probably 2027 on the horizon, and until then we'll just have to deal with remakes and remasters, which is good because the timeline has been revived. So I think we're going to see a lot of focus on games that are already available, but which will get a whole new visual and content-wise experience on the Nintendo Switch 2. But what do you think Nintendo will provide to us in regard to Zelda in probably not this very much a Zelda year of 2025? Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press that notification bell with all notifications on. And last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching, and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to Raw Producer, JC Funk, and Heroes, Holly Wolf, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, and Kintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.